Welcome everybody to Mike's a little hot. Welcome everybody to today on Star Trek Lost Stars, the online campaign where you can follow us as the Klingon Empire as we expand, exploit, exterminate, and explore strange new worlds, subjugate new races, and take on the other players in the game. This is a 4X game played amongst players on a platform called Vassal to be able to have a great time fighting each other, role-playing, and basically having fun in the Starfleet universe. If that is up your alley, then please feel free to join us over at Star Trek Lost Stars on Patreon. Patreon.com//Lost Stars, Star Trek Lost Stars. Oh my goodness, can't even get it out straight. And patreon.com/Lost Stars. And you'll be able to find us there and find ways to be able to participate in the game. Either if you want to just watch these live streams and provide us some kind of support to be able to continue making this content for you, then fantastic. If you want to actually participate in the game by taking control of a ship, a small task group of up to 3 ships, a fleet of up to 10, or even an entire province, and control and be responsible for the defending of that territory against our vile enemies, then please go check us out on Star Trek Lost Stars. And if in any case, feel free to reach out, add your comments down below, and tell us what excites you about this game. What do you like about these live streams, and how do you want to participate? So with that all being said, today we are talking about the rise and the fall of Red Fleet. That was not what I was expecting. This is what I was expecting. Stand by. Here we go. There we are. So that is the rise and fall of Red Fleet. Just a little promo video there. But before we really get started in all this, let's start with checking in on a little bit of a turn update. So let's switch over and let's take a look at the chart or the map. So for those of you who are just joining us now, again, this is a 4X game that is played. This is basically the game Federation and Empire, a game that is a strategy-based, strategic level game that we are playing in a 4X capacity. Explore space, expand your borders, exploit resources, and exterminate your enemies. And in this example, you're looking at a map. This is a platform called Vassal, which basically is a tabletop simulator that allows us to be able to simulate or reproduce in a digital way sort of the Federation Empire game components, counters, maps, and so on. And we're able to play that online. We do this through a combination of playing this on Vassal, as you can see here, and as well as using Excel spreadsheets to be able to manage our economy, movement, and various other things, which I will share with you in just a moment. But let's take a look at the map. And here you can see, I'll even zoom out one more because it's just getting out of control. And of course, it won't let me move that around. I'll zoom in one more. There we go. So here you can see, as I'm slow, there we go. So we're going to have to get to the point where we're just going to go straight to the map because this map is starting to get too big for the little window that I have here. And maybe what I'll do is I'll just do that right now. Switch over to this. And here you can see the map. I'll zoom in so it's a little bit easier for you to see what's going on. And even then, it's just a little bit too big. All right. So as you can see here, this is our area of explored space within this map. This map is turn 45. So again, when it comes to this game, in the early stages of the game, before we encounter other players, what we end up doing is we progress turns sort of in bunches. Normally, this is a turn-based strategy game, meaning that you go one turn at a time, and there's a sort of a sequence and an order in which all the players progress their turns. At this early stage, because there's no interaction between the players, then we can go ahead in like bursts and spurts, and we can move ahead sort of without interacting or waiting on the other players. this is important because we play this game. Let me switch over here. We play this game in such a way that we have an actual person, heartbeat, pulse, who is actually processing all the numbers and data and everything behind the scenes to be able to make this this game happen. So as for any board game that you've ever played, especially the more complicated ones, you have to do little calculations and manage your economy and things like that. And so when it comes to all the administration behind a processing of the stuff behind the scenes, we have an actual person who does that for us as opposed to some kind of software program. And so it takes a little bit of time. We do this because it allows us the ability to be able to introduce role-playing and various other aspects of the game. And so that's how we process the turns. At this early stage, because I'm not interacting with any of the players, really, we're able to progress the turns a little bit faster. So that's where we're at. So as you can see here, this is turn 45. Now, there's been an incident that's occurred in turn 45 that made the turn stop. The last time we had turns, it was turn 41, and I had submitted turns up to turn 51. So 10 turns at a time to be able to see how we could progress. The issue that had happened here is the rise of Red Fleet. Now, Red Fleet, as it's described in the email that I received, was basically, from the game mechanic side, it is purely just a random event, meaning that in the course of the game, there is a percentage chance that these random events will occur. Random events can take shape of anything from a sort of a space monster entering your space, raiders and sort of unidentified random NPCs, or sort of environmental events that may occur. The rise and disappearance of wormholes and various other things. So there's a range of different things. The game master has a table, basically, that he literally rolls dice on, and based on the results of the roll, we'll come up with a series of events. So there's a percentage chance that something will occur, and when something does occur, there's a percentage chance it'll be this, or whatever. So without trying to bore you with the explanation of all that other stuff, or all those details, fundamentally, a random event has occurred. And the random event here is the rise of a sort of a revolt faction within the Klingon Empire. And in this context, it is a fanatic religious faction that has, gained enough economic and political influence to take control of a small fleet of ships. In the context of this, let me show you here. So I'll just switch over to the map again. So here you can see what I do is I go up here to the Klingon tab, and there's a drop-down menu. And I'll zoom in. Oh, even if I zoom in, you won't be able to see it any better. So you can see there's a number of different kind of fleet markers or titles that we can look. And in this title, there's the House of Duras, Kempek, and Martok. And under there is, under Duras, that is, there is Red Fleet. So let's click on Red Fleet. Now you can see here in Red Fleet, there is a D4 cruiser with 4 attack and 6 defense. A little bit harder to see here. If I zoom in, is it going to make a difference? No. Okay. So I'm going to switch over to this. It'll make it a little easier to see. So here you can see I've got the 2 fleets that ended up fighting each other. Let's ignore the one on the right for the time being, and let's just focus on the one on the left. The one on the left is Red Fleet, which is comprised of a D4. That's a cruiser, and it has an attack factor of 4 and a defense factor of 6. The F4, again, is kind of like a destroyer, and that is a 3 attack, 4 defense unit. And then the E2, which is kind of our frigate / escort, it has an attack of 2 and a defense of 3. And that brings our total to a total of 12-17 as far as 12 attack and 17 defense. So let's take you back to the map here for a second. When the Red Fleet appeared, so how this works out, the DM or the GM, the game master, sends me an email, and in his email he says that this fleet is focused on eliminating the colony in Uniform 11, which is the colony that's right here in the sort of top right corner of the map. Now, right here. So this colony, if they were to devastate it, there wouldn't be too much economic impact, but obviously, I don't want fanatics running around demolishing economic assets, or in the context of Klingon citizens in the Empire. So I needed to be able to put together a fleet to be able to stop them. Now, luckily, over the course of the past number of turns, I've been building a fleet, and they are currently in the Klingon home fleet, which you can see here. Now this, I'll go back to the previous. So this is the Klingon home fleet. Now, one of the things that's important to note about this is if you take away one F4 and 3 of these E2s, that's what's currently in the sort of the fleet, which is 3 of these F4s and a D4. The turn 45, where this occurred, and I got the notification that there was going to be a fight basically between Red Fleet and whatever I was going to mount against it. I took that turn to build a fleet of ships. Let me show you that now. So turn 45. So I'll zoom in here so you can take a little bit of a better look. So here you can see turn 45. That's right here. And, we have a bunch of things that are going on the back end. But as we come up to turn 45, you can see that there is one D4 slipway, one F4 slipway, and 3 E2 slipways. I took this opportunity to be able to build one F4, the destroyer, and 3 of the E2s, or the frigates. Now, this was well within the economy at peacetime, the economic capacity at peacetime. But one of the interesting things you'll see here is that there's an L in the next turn. Why is there an L there, Tony? Because the way the rules are written, the way that we've crafted the rules is such that, as I come back to myself here, the way we've crafted the rules is such that in order to go to, there's 3 different statuses of sort of economic status. One is peace. The other is limited war, which is kind of like, if you want to think of it's like a build up to war. And then there's war. And essentially, peacetime is a 50% cut of your income. So whatever your gross income is, you only get half of that to spend every turn. Limited war gives you access to 75%, and then war is 100% economy. The bad thing about war is that as you progress through various war turns, you accrue or build up war turns. And basically that's like kind of like war fatigue. And then once you reach after 20 turns at war, your economic output starts to decrease. And I'll show you on the spreadsheet here. You can see here that after 20 turns, it decreases to 75%, or the same as limited war. After 30 turns total, you go to 50, then 40, it's 40%, and then 50, it's 30%. And so the idea here is that there is a cost to going to war. We don't want individuals to be at perpetual state of war because then it takes out the sort of the impact of the economy when you're constantly fighting. So that's why that happens. So one of the factors around limited war, and we shared this in the last turn, is that, or in the last live stream, is that you can go to limited war if you have to send multiple units to be able to deal with a threat. Now that could be, for example, when the D6 showed up in our last live stream, we needed to be able to send a number of ships to be able to go deal with it because the D6 is a more advanced and kind of powerful ship, and I couldn't send just one ship to deal with it. I needed to send a fleet of 3 or 4. Excuse me. And so in this case, there's 3 ships, and I have to send a far more substantial fleet to engage with it. Now, one of the criteria in limited war is that only on the turn of engagement, meaning that the turn in which they fight, can I go to limited war status. So if we go back to the spreadsheet here, you can take a quick look, and you can see that after spending the money that I did to be able to build up those ships, that put me, and I can accrue a deficit, but only up to -10. You can see here in the turn 45 column that the end of turn balance was -8.05. So it's basically, I'm in the hole by $8, and that carries me over to the next turn. But with the next turn having some significant expenditures because we're continuing to build bases, it's important to be able to manage that cost, because if it gets over -10, then I'm not able to spend any money the following turn. Basically, the -10 threshold means that once I get to -10, I can't actually spend any money after that. So the limited war factor, we've put it here on turn 46, allows us to be able to go to limited war. That is the turn of engagement, and I'll map that out for you in a second. And then so we can go to limited war, and then again, that brings us down to, at the end of that turn, basically a -3.5 deficit. But you're saying, Tony, how is it that you can engage that ship, that fleet rather, on the next turn? Let me show you. So here on the map, you can see that the Klingon home fleet is here at the center, and that is Papa 14. And then you've got up here, you've got Red Fleet, and they want to destroy this target over here, which is the colony. So ships of this era can only move, like for example, the D4, the F4, and the E2s, of which those are all the units in the various fleets. They can only move four spaces. So the Red Fleet can go 1, 2, 3, and either go to Tango 10 or Tango 11, but they can't quite get to the colony. My ships can also move 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So here we go. They've gone into Tango 12. So my initial move order is that I'm going to build the fleet up to the size of the fleet that you see here, which again, as a reminder, this is what it looks like. Red Fleet on the left, home fleet, the Klingon home team on the right, and we're going to move into this hex right here, which is Tango 12. Now, why do you do that, Tony? Why not? Like, why is that useful? Because as you notice here on the icon, can I zoom in one more? No, I can't. So as you notice on the, whoops, let's just undo that. There we go. As you can see here, as you can see here, there is a little diamond on the base. Now, we talked about this before when it comes to extended reaction range and reaction range. This is a feature in the game. So if you think about it, a ship, a vessel, in Star Trek has these sensors, right? So if you think about radar or sonar, of course, in space, in the Star Trek universe, we have our sensors, and they basically detect ships out to a radius of 1 hex. Bases, or any of these units that have that diamond, allow them to be able to sense things out to 2 hexes. And what that means is that once a ship comes in within 1 hex of, or comes within 2 hexes of a unit, or like a base or a scout or something with that diamond, then the ships there, the things that can move out towards that thing that's now 2 hexes away. So you move out, you move into this space, and I can move out to meet you. But it's sequential. So you move in, I move towards you to be able to engage you. You move over here, and then I move, and I'm on top of you, and I can meet you there. So if the Red Fleet moves into Tango 11 or Tango 10, I can move my ships here, and I will be in a position to be able to engage them. Now, oh, sorry, you couldn't see that. So yes, here's where the base is, where my home fleet's going to be, and then so you have units in Tango 10 or Tango 11, depending on where they go. And then when they move, I can respond to them. Now, there is a piece in the rules that says if you are moving away from a unit, they cannot react towards you. So, for example, if they end the turn in Tango 11, and then I end the turn in Tango 12, and they move away from me, I can't react towards them. I can't like pursue them or chase them. It's only if they are coming towards or maintaining the same sort of distance from me. So, in the email that I received from the Game Master, the email said, as I look it down here, okay, hold on. let me do a quick search and pull up that email. Here we are. So the battle occurred in Uniform 11, meaning that the battle occurred in the hex of the colony. So that would mean, keeping in mind that in any of the sequences of turns, you go by initiative, meaning that the person with the smallest economy goes first, and then the biggest economy goes last. When it comes to non-player characters, or in this case, the Red Fleet will always go first. They will always move before I will. So they obviously moved in such a way that they were in Tango 10. Tango 10 being right here. And then they moved into Uniform 11. My ships were here in Tango 12, and then they moved to respond to support Uniform 11. So what does that mean? That means there was a fight. Again, this is a breakdown of the fight. So the fight is, I have on the right side home fleet with a D4 and a D4N. The D4N is the diplomatic ship that was also at the homeworld, and we put it into home fleet to be able to help support this. What's important about the D4 is that the D4 has a command rating, meaning it can control as many as 8 ships, has a command rating of 8. So 8 ships over and above itself. So if you do the quick count, you will see that the D4, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ships, meaning I'm maxing out the number of ships that can be in this fleet. So you got the D4 and the D4N, basically the same in the sense of they both bring the same attack and defense, 4 and 6 each. I've got 4 of the F4s, those are the destroyers, and they're 3-4 apiece, and then 3 of the escorts, E2s. So what do you think? I mean, it's fairly clear what the result of this is going to be, but here's what happened. So you can see in the fight, the Red Fleet lost all their ships. I ended up losing 1 E2, and I crippled an E2 and an F4. What does that mean? Crippled ships are just damaged ships, ships that are damaged to the point where they cannot perform at their maximum level. And so when a ship is crippled, and I will show you this in the map in the game. So when a ship is crippled, and I'll use Red Fleet as the example here, when you see a ship crippled, it looks like this. It has this white bar across it. And in the context of Red Fleet, in the context of an E2, normally a ship in E2 is a 2-3. When it's crippled, it's only a 1. So it's a 1 attack, 1 defense. And F4s go from 3-4s to 2s. Oh, and D4s go from 4-6s to 2-3s. Basically, it kind of cuts it in half. And so how do defense factors work? We can do an episode. You let me know in the comments if you want to see an episode where I break down the process and how combat works in this game. Meaning, what is the sequence of things that happen in the course of a combat round and a turn? What kind of things do you take into consideration? How do you add up the attack and defense factors? What does that mean? How do they play out? Or do you just want to see the results of those fights, i.e. this? Meaning that scratch Red Fleet and I lost an E2. Would you prefer just to see this, or do you want to see a full breakdown of how these fights occur? You let me know in the comments below, and we can change and make changes to how how I do these live streams to be able to map that out, or create a video for you about how mapping out exactly how combat happens in a round, and then how that goes. There's a lot of sort of like numbers and numerical calculations you have to make with regards to this stuff. It's a little complicated, not overly so. It's easy to understand, but to try and explain it in this environment online on a live stream may not be your cup of tea, but I can certainly make a video explaining it all for you if that's something you want. Like I say, add your comments down below and let me know. With that being said, I'm going to take a quick look at the live stream, and I can see based on Twitch and on YouTube, no comments right now, but if you're watching on the replay, please put your comments in below to let me know if that's something you'd like to see, or any other aspects of this game that you would like further explained. I can do an explainer video, which will go up on the YouTube channel, and you can see those at your leisure. So let's go back to the map, and there was another aspect to the turn that came out. Let me just swap back to the map here. There was another aspect to the turn that we talked about earlier in the. There we go. That we talked about earlier in the week, and that was meeting another player. Now you kind of saw a peek of it there when I scrolled the map down a little bit, but we encountered another player. So what does that look like? Let me show you who it is. Can you guess? Before I go down there, can you put your comments in the chat below and guess who it is we met? What classic Star Trek race from the original series or the animated series, or if you're a fan of Starfleet Battles and Federation Empire, you know all the races that are involved. What race did we encounter? Now, we know that, of course, there's the Feds, the Klingons, the Romulans. Those are the classics. There's also the Gorn, which are, well, you know the Gorn if you've ever watched the original series. The big lizard guys with the big rock over Kirk's head. There's also a race, which I played in the last game, called the Paravians, which are basically like feathered dinosaurs, and they're an offshoot of the Gorn. Basically, they're like they're another version of the Gorn, just with feathers. They have a slightly different take on their technology rather than the Gorn when it comes to how this game maps out. But that's basically the difference between the Gorn, the Paravians, which are just like feathered Gorn, and the Romulans. They're all those what they call plasma races. So they have the same kind of weapons. There's also in an expansion to the game Federation Empire, there's something called the Interstellar Concordium, which another player played in the last game. The Interstellar Concordium are also a plasma race. They all they all have the same weapons, and think of them like a United Federation, only different races, different species rather, and they use plasma as opposed to phasers and photons. On the other side of the map, on a traditional Federation and Empire board, you've got the Klingons, and then you've got around them, you've got what are called the Kzinti, which are kind of like tiger people, and then the Lyrans, which technically are more like lynx, but I think of them as lions. Basically, they're two kinds of cat people, the Kzinti and the Lyrans. And the Kzinti, when we talk about features and what makes them special, they're all about missiles. Basically, they have a technology, a weapon system technology in the game that's called drones, basically missiles, and basically they fire tactical nukes at you all the time, and they swarm you with them. The Lyrans, they have those as well, but they have a unique technology that allows them to basically create this like expanding sphere of energy that can hurt you, and that's important in the tactical gameplay, ship-to-ship battles. In Starfleet battles, doesn't really play out too much on this level game, but it's just something to think about. One of the advantages of the Lyrans is because of the way they build their ships, they have this sort of feature where they can slice and dice and Julian Fry their ships from basically weld two ships together to make a bigger ship, and so on and so forth. So there's some features in there. And then there's the squishy Hydrans. The Hydrans are a race that I love. They specifically, as a characteristic, they're all about fighters. Basically, they are a race that has a whole bunch of carriers. And so, you know, if you're a fan of World War II, you know how effective carriers can be. Modern militaries, of course, the ability to project power is based on the dominance of air power and the use of aircraft. So in the context of this game, fighters are incredibly effective. And what's great about them is that whereas we talked about the attack and defense factors of these ships in this game, fighters basically allow you to be able to soak up all the damage without taking any damage to the actual ship. If a ship is damaged, you have to take it to a base or a dock or somewhere where you need to repair it. Fighters, when they're destroyed, are just sort of resupplied. And there's no, other than paying money to resupply the fighters in to a ship, if a ship with a carrier loses all its fighters in a battle but wins the battle, then you just restock the fighters. There's no need to take it back to a base to repair it. It just needs to be resupplied. And as long as you're in the supply range of your empire, bada bing, bada boom, you're rocking and rolling. So those are some of the basic. Oh, and of course I forgot the Tholians. So if you know the classic Tholian web episode from TOS, you might have also seen there's an episode of involving the Tholians in Enterprise. The Tholians are an advanced species, and they have like those wedge-shaped ships, and they make the Tholian web. So they're a faction that you can play also within Federation Empire, and they've got some very unique features as well. So those are all the different players that we can play. And one of the things that, because this is a bit of a homebrew game, we're adding in other races. So there is a player. So if you are a fan of Battletech being another tabletop war game where you have mechs walking around, there is a Battletech video game out there. In that universe or that mythology, there's like these different factions, and one of our players is essentially playing from a role-playing perspective, playing a faction from Battletech, but using just Federation Empire counters and a race within Federation Empire called the Borak, which I'll have to explain to you later. I don't know enough about the Borak. They are basically an expansion set on Federation Empire. But basically, same idea, just another species, another faction. And in the context of this game, basically the player is just basically playing a Battletech faction, and using the Borak counters to represent those ships. In future games, if you would like to play, we are looking at being able to sort of include aspects of other famous sci-fi series. For example, Star Wars. Could we include a faction that is the Empire with Star Destroyers and so on? Could we include a faction that is the Rebellion, or the sort of the Galactic Senate, and or the Rebels, and include them as a faction in the with counters and various things? There are obviously, there are a lot of fan films out there that talk about Star Trek versus Star Wars and so on, and Stargate and Babylon 5 and all these other things. So understanding how we would potentially incorporate and create new counters for those would be interesting, but it's all within the context of the greater game, which is Federation Empire. That's the mechanic that we're using. A big shout out to Amarillo Design Bureau, the makers of Federation Empire and Starfleet Battles. Without this game, we would not be able to play it and have fun doing it, and you wouldn't be able to see it here today. Let me get back to the turn. So you've had this time to be able to write something into the chat. Who was it that we encountered? Let me show you. Boom. Who do you know in Star Trek has a blue counter? Granted, it's a little hard to tell because it's not the classic shape, but this is the Federation. You might have seen as a YouTube short or TikTok video earlier this week, a video that I put out where it was basically Botel, the ship in a bottle, the E1 that you can see here in the bottom of the screen, had sent out a signal to an unknown sensor reading saying, we are the IKV Botel, seeking out new species and civilizations. Identify yourself. What are your intentions? And the response was, this is a USS Ticonderoga, and we are the Federation. We are also on an exploratory mission, and we made contact. And so what I asked was, because as you can see here, because of the transit that Botel and Botel 2 had made through these wormholes, they had been damaged or crippled. So you can see here, like I mentioned before earlier, when a ship is crippled, it's got that white band across it, which you can see here. And instead of being a 2-3, this ship is a 1. Now, actually, as an E1, I believe it was only a 2 to begin with. But, well, let's just take a quick look. If you flip it, it's a 2. Yeah. So it started off as a 2, and now it's a 1 because it's crippled. When it's crippled, if it takes basically at this point, if it takes 1 hit, it's toast, and I would need to have it repaired. But I'm on the far side of the galaxy. No one's going to be able to repair me. So I asked in the role-playing, so the role-playing aspect of this game plays out where we go back and forth with email. And, you write out kind of like what you're doing in the email. You wait for the other player to respond. You go back and forth that way. So I had asked if they could provide some rest and refuge and repair for our ships, explaining that we had been damaged during our travels in deep space. And they said yes. They directed us to RR37, which is this hex, to where you can see there is a YBS, a Y-era base station. Interesting. So let's just take the ships off for a sec. Dook. And you can see that there is a base station there. Now let me switch the map so you can see the overall map, and I'll show you something else. So let's zoom out a little bit here. Well, first of all, so I had Botel and Botel 2. Botel was coming across basically in a straight line, and Botel 2 was coming from this gravity rift, or the one-way ticket, and was going up on a diagonal to be able to see if it could encounter anyone. And lo and behold, what did they find? These 2 YBSs. Now, without knowing where their homeworld is, I've got these 2 YBSs, and as you saw in when the Klingons are building out their, I'll switch over here. As the Klingons are building out their base network, we're building them at intervals of 2 because of that reaction distance or extended reaction distance I was talking about with those diamonds, remember? So if we kind of do a similar thought process here, how and why are these bases where they are? Or if this is where they are, where do I think his homeworld can be? Meaning, like, where's his starting point and how is he expanding out? Let's look up here. So let's bring the ships back for a second. And so I can see here, based on this distribution, he's got an exploratory vessel, which probably is, that's a W-era survey cruiser. And that's his survey ship that he's using to be able to explore. I would expect that that would be on the edge of his territory, because that's the edge of what he can explore. So if he's on the edge, then this base station here by Botel is probably, not too far from the edge of his space. This one here is also, that was the first one I encountered. So these 2 base stations they're kind of a strange distance from each other. If I'm thinking that he is, a fair, like, maybe 2, 3 hexes away, like maybe he's building them 3 hexes apart. If he's building them 3 hexes apart, then maybe his homeworld is around here. Because, there's maybe a base here and then a base here and, like that. Or maybe there's a base in Whiskey 36. Or, sorry, that's not Whiskey, that's Victor. Very, very easy to make that mistake. So Victor 36 versus Whiskey 37-36. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see where exactly his bases are. Now, it's kind of a moot point to a degree, because in this game at this early stage, there's a sort of a debate about whether you are hiding or not hiding your map, whether you are, not sharing information. Because, of course, once 2 players encounter each other, one of the things that happens in this game is, in order to make it easy for the game master, at some point we need to amalgamate all the different players and their individual maps to have one map for the entire game. It makes it easier for all the players, and certainly the game master who's processing all the turns. The way we do that is that once you have supply to the other player, and they have supply to you, the maps open up. And the rationale there is because we have traders, merchants, and so freighters will go back and forth between the 2 empires, There'll be gossip and chatter and sharing of navigational data to open up trade networks. And as that happens, the maps open up because you'll have traders from the far end of one empire sharing information from traders on the far end of another. Long story short, everybody knows where everybody is, and the maps open up. So at some point, we're going to have supply to each other to be able to know where each other are. Now, of course, because we're live streaming this entire process here, if those players watch this live stream, which I know that they do, then they already know where I am. They already know the status of how well we are, the Klingons, how we're doing. And there's no benefit to be able to hide that from them today. So the only thing I can do is be as transparent as possible, because they won't necessarily have the most up-to-date information, because these live streams come to you not necessarily with the most up-to-date, like for example, this live stream is coming to you today on Saturday, June 5th. And the turn that I'm sharing with you, I received a week ago. So the information is a week delayed. So I'm not sharing with you the most up-to-date information because those other players obviously are watching. But if I share information with that other player, in this case the Federation player, then we can at least know where each other are, and whatever he shares with me at that point, I'll know. Of course, I've got these two ships here, and as long as he doesn't blow them out of the water, they can continue to kind of explore and work their way around, and eventually, through some kind of search pattern, I can identify where all his stuff is. It would just be easier and faster if he would just share the map with me. It also makes it easier to be able to transit, because if these are non-fogged hexes, these ships can still move two. They can move two at a time as opposed to one. So that's good to know. So I've asked to share maps with the feds. We'll see what happens. And I've asked for them to repair my ships. So we'll see what happens. Now, being mindful of time, and I don't want to take up your entire afternoon. Just before I went live, I did receive a Turn 51 update email. I have not taken a look at the map yet or the spreadsheet, so I have no idea what it says. But would you like me to share that with you now? If you do, put the comments down below. Let me know if you would like to see that turn now. Because what will end up happening is that I'll get that turn. I'll respond to that turn today. Map it out for probably another 10 turns. And over the course of next week, I'll get a trickle of information and stuff coming back. After all, a week ago, I had gotten turn 41 back. I sent the turn back in, and by Monday, I had received, or Tuesday rather, I had received turn 45 with Red Fleet. So, do you want to see what the next turn has to say? Let me know in the comments below if that is something you'd like to see in this live stream right now, and I will be happy to share that with you. So, I can see the comments are quiet. I will still share it with you today because I'm excited to see what it says. Okay, so let's minimize this. I'm going to share the screen. So here's the map that we were just looking at. This right here is the new turn. Here it is. Ready? I'm going to scroll down and take a look. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. All right. I'm going to sneeze here in a second. One sec. Excuse me. All right. So as you can see, this map's getting pretty hectic. Let's take away the ships for a sec. Oh, I'm going to sneeze again. Let's take away the ships for a second. We can take a look. So I'm going to take away the ships and... Excuse me. Allergies, it's that time of year, and they are crazy. So let's take a quick look here and kind of update you sort of on the infrastructure process. Let me zoom in a little bit. All right. So at the bottom half of the map, here's where we're at. As you can see, we're now on the sort of the second ring of bases. that are under construction. You can see this one is supposed to be finished in 88 fall, and this one is 98 fall. Now I can tell you right now that that is just a label on the counter that was forgotten to be removed. The game master just probably forgot to take it off because this one is going to be complete in 91 fall, and I bet you these are all being built by convoys, and if they are, if they are being built by convoys, then and this base would have been built before this one up in November 11. So that's just a tag that or a label that was forgotten. So as you can see, we've got the second ring all the way around completed. Excuse me, I've got a stuffy nose after sneezing. And you'll notice that this unit here is different than the rest of the bases. Why is that, Tony? Well, that's a YDK, or a Y-era space dock. Y-era space docks, as you can see, have higher attack and defense. They also have the ability to repair substantially more damage. So, a YBS can repair as many as 2 points of damage. A dock can repair 8. That's significantly more. Also, when it comes to, excuse me for 1 second. The allergies are kicking in and my nose is starting to run. So Y-Docks can repair up to 8 damage, and they also, the more you have, the more ships that you can strategically move in a turn. I can talk about that more in another episode, but or in another live stream, but essentially the more of those you have, the better. Also, you'll see that it's 4 hexes away from my homeworld, and based on where we've encountered, let's just zoom out the map to sort of the max. Based on where we've encountered these bases down here, I'm starting to want to build out and develop a little bit more of a sort of a, call it like a line of defense, to be able to allow to repair any ships should I encounter another player and they're not so friendly. Because I've encountered one now. I'm not sure exactly where he is in the grand scheme of things. Maybe he's, I don't know. I'm not sure where exactly his homeworld will be, but I'm going to start building out at the distance of 4 hexes out. I'm going to start building these YDKs at sort of critical cardinal points. So at the, we'll call it the south or the southwest corner, the south, the southeast, northeast, north, and northwest, and just build out those YDKs to be able to support repair should bad things happen and I encounter other not so friendly players. And granted, not all the players will be friendly because of role playing and various other things. So that's where we're at. You can see that, like I say, we've finished that. And I'm going to include the supply. Where is the supply tab? I seem to be having a blank. There it is, supply menu. Okay, so Klingon supply, and I'm going to set the supply. Excuse me, my nose is running. All right, so my supply is set to 3. So there's a sort of a small discrepancy here. The supply point is counting these colonies as supply points, which they are not. But you can basically see here, at least on the southern part, the radius of the supply that I have out, because my current supply is 3. And so it allows me to be able to have full supply to those hexes. Let's bring the ships back in. And you can see that my exploration freighters, which are these guys here, my exploration cruisers, the D4Es in the north and the D3E in the south, are, again, continuing to sort of explore at that 2 hex mark. So that's where we're at. So you can see here that there is a, once it decides to, there we are. So you can see down here, I'll zoom in a little bit more so it's easier to see. So you can see here, can I zoom in? I can't zoom in anymore. So you can see here that there is a base station that is going to be completed shortly, and that there is a E1 Tango, sorry, like a E1T and an F3J that are there. Couple of interesting points here on this map. Let's just kill the supply menu for a sec. So a couple little things that you may have noticed. One, all these colonies are now small planets, developing planets. That's important because their attitudes are going to start to change. I is indifferent. U is unhappy. And when they start to become unhappy, they get to the extreme anyway, then bad things can occur when it comes to they can declare independence. They can, if they get unhappy, then the economic contribution that they make, depending on their size, will change. And that's an important factor to consider. So while I have one of the things that's important to influence a planetary's attitude is a base. So it looks like I'm going to have to, one, send my diplomatic ship over here to improve the attitude of this planet. And as a way to be able to help preserve it, preserve the attitude, that is, I'm going to have to build a base station there to be able to sort of keep it in line. That's one of the sort of, I don't want to say burdens, but it's a challenge when it comes to planets is you need to be able to create infrastructure on the planet that's going to be able to support a positive planetary attitude. The better that it is, the better the planetary attitude, then the better economic output it will produce. So yeah, I've got these 3 planets here. As you can see, 2 colonies. Just take this out there. A new colony there, and of course that was the colony that was going to be attempted or was targeted by Red Fleet. And as we scroll down here, it looks like Botel and Botel 2 are still crippled. That's primarily because the role-playing hasn't really played out. And because, again, it's over email. Once we have some role-playing that allows for, or that translates out some ability to, basically the other player agrees to repair my ships, then we'll go. We'll see what happens. Please excuse us, the loud traffic is outside. I can hear a helicopter. I'm not sure if you can hear that. Let's take a look at the turn. So here's turn 51. I'll zoom in so we can see some things. Okay, so on turn 47, what was this? Brilliant naval architect. Bring current ship designs forward by 2 turns. Ooh. So why is that important? Well, if we go to the MSIT, you will notice here, as I zoom in, so there is something called the arrival date of any particular model. And so in this case, for example, Y-Tech arrives at, let's see here, turn 78 for me. So year 78, rather. Year 78 was the nominal turn, or the baseline turn, when ship designs were introduced. And then as we progress throughout the turns, the years kind of go by, and then other ship types will become available. In year 81, it was the D4N, and then the Echo, and then the Juliet, and then the Charlie for the command cruiser, and so on and so forth. So that's how that affects. That's why that's important, is as the ship designs come forward by however many turns, 2 turns is basically a year, then that helps or adds, sort of makes ships available sooner. What else here? We've got a little bit of an economic boost, so an extra 1.625 to the economy. Always good. And then NN16, loyalty drops to unfriendly due to unfavorable ruling on trade. So this would be another example of a random event that has occurred in the game. And yeah, and that random event has occurred, and it just means I'm going to have to take some action to correct it. As we go down here, there's some notes here. So you'll see that Cadrak increases to a minor world. Let's go back to the map real quick. You can see that on the Klingon capital, boom, Cadrak, which was a colony, is now a minor planet. That increases its economic output. It's going to be important to start building a base here to improve its planetary attitude, as well as just increase the sort of home system defense. So there's all these planets that now I got to start building bases on, which are expensive, just to be able to manage the happiness piece around that. Let's go back to the spreadsheet. N14. So N14 grows into a minor world. N14 is this one. So this one's a minor world. Just as a quick recap, switch you here so I can pull up the... I'm just going to pull up the player information. So we have another spreadsheet that talks about player information. And let me just switch and show it to you. So here, the things highlighted in yellow are the things that were changed from the last game. Let me zoom in here and remind you of the sort of the status of our different options here. So colony, we saw the colony. That's that little kind of dome thing. Then we have a minor planet, which is, developing planet, which is the smallest of the planets. Then there's a minor planet. Again, the icon for it's very similar. And as it's describing here, that this planet here with the little blue dot, or rather, N14 was the one that grew into a minor planet. So N14 is a minor planet, not a developing planet. Why is that important? Because it produces 3 EP, not 2. And then, of course, there's a medium planet, which produces 4, major 5, and then, of course, your homeworlds produce 10. All right, so let's go back to the turn. So N14 grows to a minor, 16 is a developing, and 14 becomes a developing. So recap here. This one is a developing, this one is a developing, and this one's a minor. So 2, 2, and 3 respectively as far as what they're producing or contributing to the economy of the Klingon Empire. Thinking of economy, let's go back up. And look, our economy is now at least in turn 49, it was at a 36.5. Now in turn 50, we're at 39. So that's a pretty significant increase in income over even just a couple turns before where it was 30. So that's an increase of nearly, 30% over the course of a couple turns. That is very good. I think it would be fair to say that in the game, based on our current sort of statistical projections, and I mean, that's a fancy way of just kind of gut checking how quickly everyone's growing. It is unlikely that as many other players have as many small planets like this that are available to them. And so because I do have this many, it's just allowing me this sort of ability to scale and grow as those colonies turn into minor planets or developing planets, and then developing to minor, minor to medium, medium to major, and so on and so forth. So that's just like, it just allows your economy to scale and grow in that way. Pretty significant. So I'm going to have to build some more bases to be able to facilitate the good attitude on these different things. Let's take a quick look on what the impact is. So a minor planet, if it's in a, let's just show you here, because the minor planet is unfriendly, and I'll just come on, get all the way over there. So minor planet, let's just highlight it so we can see. So a minor planet, when it is unfriendly, negatively impacts the income by half an economic point. Whereas if it was happy, it would be plus half an economic point. Why is that important? Well, let's go back and check if I had that plus 0.5, I would be at a 40 income. That's pretty significant at this stage of the game. 40 income, to keep in mind, in the last game, my maximum income at turn, I don't know, what were we at? Turn 120? So at turn 120, I think my maximum income was something close to 80 or 85. So we're not even halfway there, and already close to half of that income. That's significant. That's not, shall we say, it's not insignificant. It's pretty good. As a reminder of what we've built so far, so we had an F4 repair. So these are the repairs from the ships that got damaged from the Red Fleet battle. Built a T4, which is a kind of tug, and built another T4. So where are those T4s now? You can see that one T4 is currently over the home world. And let's just see here. Are they in home fleet? Home fleet, home fleet, home fleet. Boom. They're not in home fleet. Just looking around here, see, there we go. So in my notes, I had put that the tugs would move to a location where they could build the next base. And tugs are not restricted by the convoy limitation. So right now, let me show you a little piece of... So when we go to the tech tree here, this column here is called logistics. And I'll zoom in a little bit more so you can see it a little bit better. So logistical support just means that you can do certain kinds of things. In this case, you can only, so you can do logistical support, meaning that a convoy can do sort of a convoy duty or a convoy mission or like build something, for example. It can only do one of those at a time, meaning one convoy can do one thing that a convoy can do, build, provide supply, and these various other things, one at a time. As you move through in year, for example, 120, without any research, there is an option to get to allow 2 convoys to do things, right? Now, what that does is it allows you to do basically 2 convoys to either build things or provide supply, or they can do things concurrently. Tugs are not limited by that. So I could have 10 tugs out there building 10 different bases. As long as I have money to support buying those bases, then I'm good to go. So that's where we're at. You can see here also just a couple little things as far as ships that are coming along. The F4I, which is basically a police ship, was made available in turn 47. Heavy transport shuttle, which is what this is, the YHTS is a Y-era heavy transport shuttle. They are used for boarding operations. So a boarding is something you can do not only in the, let me switch here. Boarding is something you can do not only in the Starfleet battles, tactical ship-to-ship battle thing, but also when you're having a strategic battle. You can have, if you have G factors on, G factors are called, they're called G factors. They're basically Marines and troops that you can deploy to try and board another vessel, board a space station, or deploy ships on, or deploy troops on the ground and do a kind of a ground assault on a planet or base. Planetary ground base. So those heavy transport shuttles help with that. They're also, as we can see here on the tech tree, I will scroll, whoops, here we go. I will scroll over to shuttles. It's actually under fighters. So here you can see here, oh no, sorry, my mistake. They're under shuttles. So under shuttles, you can see heavy transport shuttle. I'd have to look up what the GBS stands for. Heavy Assault Shuttle is the HAS. And then Admin Shuttles opens up basically fighters. So if you're, for example, the Hydrons in this game, Federation has them too. A lot of other races have fighters at later points. But it opens up fighters to you. Back here. So, and then the C4 is a large battle cruiser, basically a dreadnought. And the D4G is a cruiser with Marines on board. So just real quick here, you can see the D4G listed here. It has a 1 attack, 6 defense, but it allows, it's what they call a commando ship. So it allows for dropping troops onto bases, onto planets, and it helps with being able to conduct boarding operations and things like that. So that's where we're at. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that's where we're at on the game so far. As you just saw, exciting things happening on the turn. I'm going to take a look at it a little bit later and map out what we are going to do. Based on what you saw, what do you think I should do? Would you like to be involved in this campaign? We're starting to get to a size now with regards to the size of the territory in the map where we can start parsing off provinces and create areas for players to be able to take and control the economic assets, for example, the money being produced in that province, and be responsible for building and supporting the defense of that network. So whether it's whether it's building out base stations and docks, having fleets on standby and various other things, and just controlling and having an influence on the shape of the game, you could be playing this game with me as part of the Klingon faction if you want. If you'd like to take on something like a sort of an independent non-player faction, that's something that we can certainly discuss. Add your comments below. How would you like to participate in this game? Is this a game that you'd like? And can you see sort of this turn-based strategy thing being something that you could get into? If not, and you just enjoy watching these live streams, then thank you so much for joining us today. You can join us on Patreon/Lost Stars, where you can find us there. And if you like this, you can offer us some support. We'd be very grateful, and thank you. Please consider it. Otherwise, if you want to get involved at the fleet, the fleet commander, governor, task group commander, or even if you just want a ship named after you on the map, we can all do that depending on your level of support, assuming you would like to be able to offer some support for this wonderful program, this game that we're playing. And again, we are looking for players for future games, trying to build a community around this game, this live stream, so that more people can enjoy the fun, the strategy behind this game, and the role playing that we do. That's really the fun of it, is sort of getting into character and mapping things out. You can see with the videos that you've seen. If you haven't joined us on the YouTube channel, then please check out the YouTube channel. Just do a search for Star Trek Lost Stars on YouTube, and you can find it. Link is also, obviously, if you're watching us live on YouTube, you can see those videos as well. Trying to create videos and craft them that are sort of in character with the Klingons. And once we start encountering more and more players and we get on that border, it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. There is one other thing that I didn't share with you on this live stream, and I'll save it for next time because it's a strategic thing that has been in the works and I've been developing since the beginning of the game. So think about what that could be if you think back to the other live streams. But I will share it with you in the next live stream because I have a feeling that by the next live stream, we will have progressed the turns to a point where we will sort of be able to reveal what it is we're doing in that regard. And I'll explain to you and show you what that all means. So until then, thank you so much for joining us here on Star Trek Lost Stars. There we are. Thank you so much for joining us here on Star Trek Lost Stars. Really pleasure. It has been a pleasure, rather, having you, and looking forward to seeing you next Saturday at 2:30 Pacific time for the turn update. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye for now.